I've talked several times recently about ARVs, the Alien Reproduction Vehicles. I find that subject fascinating because it appears that we've had these things since at least the 1960s, according to John Keel and Mark McClandish. So how does that possibly make any sense? Because according to Mark, these things use zero-point energy, which is a very different energy source than that described by Bob Lazar. So there's a lot of discrepancies in what's going on, but I have recently discovered an article that might actually explain these discrepancies and provide a very interesting and new way to look at it, at least for me, and I hope this is interesting for you as well. So join me. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you're thinking in the comments below as I'm going through this story. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I've gotten really interested in ARVs. Is this a real thing? If it is, how does it make any sense? How does that go with the Area 51 stuff and the Bob Lazar stuff and the idea of UFO crash retrievals? Are the ARVs the reverse engineered alien technology? If they are, why aren't they using the same power source as, if Bob Lazar's story is true, as Bob Lazar says those ships were using? How does any of this make sense? Where does it all go? How does it all fit together? It's, how much is BS? How much is real? And if it is real, how does it make sense? So I have recently discovered this article and I want to share it with you. It's kind of a lengthy article. The first part of it talks a lot about the UFO flyovers of Washington, D.C. in 1952. And so picking up from there, let's dive in. After the unexplained flyovers of Washington, D.C. in July 1952, the U.S. government seemed to go into panic mode. Within months, new and powerful agencies were created or given bigger budgets, seemingly in response to the events of that summer. Operation Paperclip, the importation of German scientists and engineers, was dramatically accelerated over the objections of President Truman. The U.S. had just been shown that some power, possibly extraterrestrial, had vastly superior aircraft that could literally fly circles around anything the Air Force had and enter and leave Washington, D.C. airspace at will. The UFOs represented a possible enemy the U.S. had no defense against, so the Air Force used every means at its disposal to develop effective counter-technologies. T. Brownson Brown, an American inventor and engineer, discovered a way to create anti-gravity through electricity in 1929. However, by then Einstein and relativity had taken hold of physics, and that camp said there was no connection between gravity and electricity. So Brown's device was impossible despite producing repeatable results under experimental conditions. Brown continued to develop and refine his inventions over the next 23 years, despite no one in the scientific establishment taking him seriously, because his devices broke the laws of physics as they were understood at that time. By the events of July 1952, the UFOs over D.C., that made the U.S. government much more receptive to his ideas, and they might have been the first trickle in a flood of anti-gravity research. Not only was Brown pitching his ideas to industry and military leaders, but pretty much every company in the defense sphere of operations got into the act. There are extensive newspaper articles from the period which identify the U.S. government's interest in anti-gravity propulsion, and it's pretty obvious they were playing catch-up. There are even notices from the Glenn L. Martin Aerospace Company looking for engineers interested in developing anti-gravity propulsion systems. Interesting. During this same period, U.S. military opened a number of program offices dedicated to the study of anti-gravity effects. One of the most prominent was the Aeronautical Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It says here that it's better known as Area 51, but Right Pat is located in Ohio. So that makes me kind of question this article because that's a glaring error. But moving on. There was also the Research Institute for Advanced Study, which shared information with the ARL. All of this research lasted for about 5 years in the middle of the decade. Then it suddenly all went silent. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what happened. Ha ha ha. The military invited and encouraged all of these anti-gravity ideas, and then after they got all the detailed proposals, they threw a wall of secrecy up around the whole subject and took it private. They've probably been working on developing the technology in secret for decades now. In 1988, there was a crack in the wall of secrecy surrounding the USAF's development of anti-gravity craft. A man named Brad Sorensen went to an air show at Norton Air Force Base in 1988, where he somehow got mixed up with a group of VIPs. The group was taken to a hangar off limits to the public. Inside were 3 flying saucers hovering above the floor. And then we get into the Mark McClandish story, which I've already covered, which tells how Brad saw these things and later helped Mark develop a kind of a very detailed schematic of them. And then later Mark was able to get other corroboration other than Brad Sorensen. Now, I haven't seen anything from Brad himself talking about this, and I would feel much better about it if I could. On the other hand, Brad Sorensen, as far as I know, is still alive, and he has never refuted Mark's claims. So you would think that if it was untrue, he would have said so. Based on the evidence I've seen, and also I'm thinking of John Keel and others. Ross Coulthart talked about ARVs in his book, although I think a lot of his information is coming from Mark McClandish. So, I want to avoid the silo of information problem where you're getting a lot of information from one or a limited number of sources. So I hate to put too much stock in ARVs, but I've heard a lot of people talking over the years about how we have these ships. And I'm generally persuaded that this makes sense and that it is likely that we do have these alien reproduction vehicles. Very sadly, Mark McClandish committed suicide, supposedly, not long ago. Some say he was going to testify before the U.A.P. task force, and before he could, he committed suicide. So I want to be sensitive and respectful to that. It could very easily have been a genuine suicide. I don't know. But there are an awful lot of suicides and suspicious deaths around this sort of thing. So we have an entirely new way of looking at this, or at least I do. From this article and this sequence of proposed events, and bear in mind they got the whole Area 51 thing wrong. So, take it with a grain of salt, as you should, most of this stuff. But all of it, maybe. So, So, according to this, there is a sequence of events where we could have independently created UFOs. That the ARVs are entirely man-made. They are not reverse engineered alien spacecraft. They are using electrical, I don't understand how it works, although I've heard of this sort of things before, the electrogravitic stuff that's, been around for a little while, and people have talked about it, and there seems to be some real there. So is that the technology they're talking about? I'll let one of you guys that understands that stuff explain it to me in the comments. The point is that according to this sequence of events, we created these ARVs ourselves. It was inspired by our fear of the UFOs, but it didn't have anything to do with the UFOs. It wasn't in reverse engineering alien technology that led us to the alien reproduction vehicles. So why do they call it alien reproduction vehicles? Okay, so how does this fit into the bigger picture? Let's just say it's real. Let's just say it's true. How does it fit into the bigger picture? We've got Bob Lazar over here at Area 51. We've got the deep underground military bases over there. We've got the Terry Lovelace type stuff where you have 50 military personnel aboard a giant UFO interacting with the beings there, helping the beings carry out abductions. And bear in mind that Terry Lovelace has been vetted by no less than Lou Elizondo. So how does that all fit together? Well, I don't know, of course, but I do have some ideas, at least as far as the Bob Lazar and the ARVs go. So, as I've talked before, there seem to be numerous factions doing different things. It's unclear how aware they are of each other and how competitive they are with each other. Government programs will often fight each other for funding, so there could be some of that going on. However, there could be a lot more going on as well. I'm sure there is. Of course there is. But we might very well have a situation where we have our own human-created UFOs completely divorced from alien technology. And at the same time, we have a parallel line of research, the Bob Lazar Area 51 stuff, where we are reverse engineering alien technology. And apparently we have gotten both modes of craft to work to some degree. Do either of those programs have anything to do with the control group or the Terry Lovelace stuff, the beings working with the military? It would certainly be more logical for the Area 51 stuff to be more associated with the beings. However, if that's true, why would we need to reverse engineer the craft if we're actually working with the beings? I wish I had some answers for you guys, but all I've got are questions. If you have some answers, please let me know, because I'm dying to know in the comments below. But also let me know what you think about the idea that we could have two, at least, parallel technologies creating anti-gravitic flying vehicles. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. Please join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please, if you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. See the first line in the description below, and there's 2 tiers of membership to receive exclusive access in videos. Until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road.